What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So, as per the title below, one of the unknown reasons as to why you have a pot belly or you have a lot of fat on your belly. So, before we get into this, let's just talk a bit about the fact that there's two different kinds of fat that you can develop, around your belly or on your belly or within your belly. So, the first kind of fat is the fat on the outside, so that is the fat above the muscle. And the second kind of fat is internal fat, and that is the fat that's around your organs. Okay? And the key reason, controlling for things like genetics and diet and exercise habits and drinking, even that you get a pot belly, and you see this a lot actually in men in particular, is stress. Okay? What stress does is it increases your cortisol production, and cortisol basically causes your body to put on more fat. Cortisol is basically a response to stress, and anytime you have a lot of cortisol, you're going to end up putting on quite a bit of fat on your belly area. Now, truth be told is you're going to have a hard time in this day and age with respect to controlling stress. If you have a 9 to 5, most people have a very stressful 9 to 5, especially if you have a boss or you're dealing with customers. There's going to be stress here. So, trying to avoid or evade stress is challenging, to say the least. Unless you can quit your job and get away from it, that within itself is completely different discussion. And if you can't do it, by all means, why aren't you? Okay. Also, other than the job, you could be having stress at home with the family, but that tends not to be as much of a factor as just survival based stress, really. Anything where your survival depends on it is where you're really gonna get that high stress, which leads to high cortisol production and the weight gain that comes with it. So, let's say you're under that high stress situation and your body's pumping cortisol and you're putting on that weight and you have a pot belly. Let's focus on things that, well, before we get started, let's define things that are outside of our control. One, it's gonna be the stressful situation. There's no escaping it, you have to deal with it. And two is your genetics, okay? You could be predisposed to low stress threshold and high cortisol production, which basically means that you put on weight faster and easier under stress. So now that we have identified these two, take them out of the picture, forget about them, there's nothing you can do about them. Okay? Now, what is it that we can focus on and that's within our control? Okay? First off, I'm gonna tell you to do your best to reframe the situation or circumstance you're in that's causing you stress. Like the Stoics say, a lot of the stress or a lot of the challenges you face in life are a matter of perception. Okay? So if you perceive a situation to be stressful or undesirable, guess what? It's gonna stress you out. So one trick is to reframe. Okay? So for example, if you're going into an office and you have to deal with a boss that micromanages you, and rather than going in and thinking, oh, this is really stressful, this guy is gonna drive me crazy, I really hate this guy, try to reframe by thinking, well, maybe he is that way because he lost work before, or maybe he's that way because he has a nervous personality, or maybe he's acting this way because his boss is really hard on him and he is stressed out too. So this reframe helps you get out of yourself and really focus on other things that could be going on. And the key here is, one is detaching yourself from the narrative, and two, just looking at different frames with respect to the stressful situations. So reframing is very powerful. It's very powerful because it's within your control and it's instantaneous, okay? And believe it or not, the saying mind over matter actually has a lot of truth to it. If you end up reframing your outlook, you actually end up impacting your cortisol levels and reducing them, okay? Now, granted, I'm gonna be upfront to say this will work great in the short term, but long term, if you're under constant stress, you can only reframe so much. So for the short to medium term, however, it's a great tool to have in your arsenal to reduce stress and in turn reduce cortisol and in turn reduce the amount of body fat you are carrying on your frame, okay? In particular, your belly. Secondly, okay, is controlling your caloric intake and what you put through your mouth, okay? Anytime you're stressed, all you're gonna think about is sugar, salt, and fat, all right? Been there, done that. You're human. Everybody's human. Everybody resorts to food for comfort under stress. However, because you're already stressed and your body's pumping with cortisol, any of those three you take in straight up goes to fat, okay? So what you want to do is try to be very conscious, okay, and proactive in terms of your stress management when it comes to food. So if you know you're going to be stressed out, you want to actually restrain yourself from consuming any high fat, high carb, high sugar, salt foods. Anything pretty much that effectively will make you feel good, but at the cost of, increasing the size of your fat cells, or increasing the number of your fat cells, or alternatively, just really jacking your insulin up and storing a lot of sugar, glycogen in particular, within your body, okay? And you got to recognize that anytime you're under stress and you have cortisol pumping through your body, you're going to look for comfort, okay? Now, most people have different coping mechanisms, but food is a very common one for all of us. So just be conscious of that. Recognize that a lot of the impulse you would get to eat when you're stressed is not really because you're hungry. It's not really because you need the nutrition. It's because you're stressed. And acknowledging that and recognizing it is super, super important and super helpful. Because if you can consciously catch yourself before you go into that autopilot mode where as soon as you get stressed, you just want to reach out for food, you can actually help stop yourself from consuming these foods. And one way also to counter this is to have really high fiber and high fat but good fat snacks. So maybe have a big bowl of salad, or with a spoon of olive oil in it, or have some oatmeal or psyllium fiber, like a half a cup to a cup of oatmeal or psyllium fiber. What that will do is it won't necessarily get rid of the stress the same way a bowl of ice cream or a bag of cookies or chips or some fried chicken will do. But what it will do is that it will reduce your hunger drive, okay? So it'll help you better manage that sort of reactive state of just eating to comfort yourself against the stress, okay? So managing your food intake is another way to reduce your pot belly resultant from stress. Okay. And the third one is exercise. I know, shocker. Anytime you're under mental or physical stress, surprisingly, rest isn't always the best thing to do. Rather, applying another stressor on yourself is what's really helpful. Now, the reason exercise is helpful in reducing stress and cortisol levels is because when anytime you're doing physical exertion, your body produces these proteins that help recover and repair your body. And a side effect of that is that they make you feel good and also reduce inflammation in the body, which is what stress really is. It's an inflammation response. Okay, so exercise, okay? It could be running, weightlifting, playing tennis, pickleball, swimming, skiing, whatever gets you moving, okay? Go and do that. And you'll always feel much better after, right? Especially if you do your exercise outdoors, close to nature, it helps you regulate yourself much better. So exercise is another one that's very helpful to manage your pot belly resultant from cortisol resultant from stress. Okay, last but not least is make sure to make time for relationships. Okay, and this one guilty of being horrible at myself. And that is basically make sure that you spend time with people that you care for and people that care for you and have a good time. Now, that could be family or friends, but having time with loved ones does reduce your stress response. And in turn, because you're producing less cortisol, you're actually gonna have less of a pot belly. I remember a few years ago, and unfortunately I don't have access to that study, but it was a study that showed the effect of socialization on body weight, and I'm sure if you Google it, something will come up. But those that are more social tend to be lighter in weight versus those that are not. And there's different reasons for it. The fact that a lot of the time when you're with people that you like and enjoy, people that care for you, your body produces certain feel-good hormones that have other beneficial effects, like reducing your cortisol level, cleaning your arteries, etc. But also the fact that whenever you're hanging with people, a lot of the time you're doing something. Even if it's sedentary, you're still doing something, right? So do not underestimate the power and the impact of relationships on reducing your pot belly and your stress levels. Okay, invest in people, put energy into people. Okay, it will literally benefit you long run, help you maintain a more trim waist, and reduce your belly fat. Okay, now let's see, what else can I tell you guys here? Yeah, that's really pretty much it. So make sure to reframe your thoughts or your mind. Make sure to control what you put in your mouth. Make sure to exercise and make sure to socialize. All right. These things will help you reduce your stress levels within your control, of course, and in turn reduce cortisol production. And last but not least, maintain a flat belly and a trim waist. All right. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. Hope this has been helpful. As per usual, very much appreciate your time and attention, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.